That's right. They're back after a week away where Andy Herman did a sane thing and just left. It just went away. Man, that was a smart move on your part. But
It
we're
really
back
was.
talking some football. Andy, good to have you back on these airwaves here after another Packers defeat.
I'm going to go a couple things. I'm going to go on a limb. I don't like 4-game losing streaks. Not a fan. That's number one. Number two, we might be in trouble because we might need you to actually be the good cop this week, which is usually a very bad sign.
I got that sense from some of your tweets there, Andrew. Let's talk through it, shall we? Because
Let's do it.
Lord knows there's a lot to talk about. But I mean, yes, after the game, I was very much in the camp of there are no moral victories, but that did feel like a moral victory in the sense of I understand a lot of that kind of success they found on the ground was due to the fact that yes, the Bills built up a big lead, played a lot of too high, and I'm not going to say let the Packers run, but they weren't worried about them running.
Right.
And the Packers, to their eternal credit, actually ran against that too high shell and did it very successfully. And there's a lot of really good tape coming out of that game.
Agreed.
Now, I'm not sitting here saying, again, that, the game was in the balance when it's 27-10 or whatever it was. I loved the fact that they showed an ability to get physical and an ability to recognize, oh, look at this too high shell. We can run against that. Because how many times have we heard Aaron and Matt after a loss or after a game this season talk about, well, they played a lot of too high in a game where Aaron Jones gets like 7 carries or 8 carries. So my thinking coming out of that game was, yes, number of ways that I'm going to be disappointed as a Packers fan. But the thing that was really encouraging to me was with the newly constituted offensive line, they showed that they can do it. And they showed that those backs can be true weapons on the offensive side of the ball. So for me, at least offensively, the defense is a whole nother issue. But for offensively, that gave me hope going forward because for the first time, you saw them able to execute at a real high level against really good, talented players in a way they haven't until this point.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with a piece of that in the fact that I've been complaining. You and I have both complained in the past of when they get down 3 scores, all of a sudden it's like they got to, bomb it down the field immediately to try to somehow get back 17 points
get it all
on
back
one
in
play.
One chunk.
Exactly. So the fact that they stayed patient, they stuck with their offense, and they had success with it. The first drive of the second half was beautiful and should have been capped off with a Robert Tonyan touchdown.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous. And then you follow that up a little bit later, obviously with the Samori Toure touchdown. You have a couple other drives that, gained some traction. I think there are positives to take away from that. And again, they took what the defense gave to them, and that's what they're supposed to do. That we would have seen this team be able to do some of that stuff earlier in the game when the game maybe was a little bit more in the balance and some of that. And I just feel like we're at the point now where you're 3-5 in the season. You've lost your 4th game in a row. And while it's nice to, gain some consistency on the ground late in the game, you're down 17 against the Bills on the road. And I just needed to see more of that and that game plan earlier in the season in the games where they probably could have won and could have taken advantage of it. I'm happy to see it in this game. It was too little too late in the game that, like you said, was not in the balance.
I mean, to me, though, you look at their third offensive drive, it's 14-0, and they absolutely put on a clinic on how to run the football. And I love that. The other part of it, too, is like, I understand, and it really felt like Aaron was frustrated after the game. Not so much with how the game went, although I'm sure he wasn't happy about it, but the fact that they didn't do exactly what you were just talking about. Like, they got down and they didn't throw it all over the yard. They didn't try and push the ball downfield. They, found their spots, but they stuck with their game plan of running the football. And I do think some of that was also predicated by the fact that they lost Christian Watson, 5 plays into the game. Absolutely. And they undoubtedly had Pack set for him. You saw both the reactions from Aaron and Matt immediately after it happened. They're clearly frustrated because they know this changes probably a lot of the stuff they worked on all week. So I think, again, there's a lot of things kind of compounding there. And yes, it was beyond frustrating that they couldn't get out of their own way early. What was killing me is like when the game was somewhat close early in the game, again, they went back to, not back to, I mean, they continued to utilize or try to utilize the RPO as like a staple of their offense. And I just think they're not wasting plays, but I just think they're so much better off when they just line up and run something as opposed to like Rodgers trying to make a read and throw to a wide receiver who's usually tackled for minimal gain.
The offense just feels a little too crackerjacky. Like it feels just a little bit too, what it was. I don't even remember 12 passes at or behind the line of scrimmage again.
Right.
And like, listen, there's a place for all of that stuff. And I understand why Matt's trying to do it. And if you can't stretch the field vertically, you at least have to try to stretch it horizontally with some of the, the swing plays and the screens to the outside. I get all of that, but man, it just at times feels a little bit too gimmicky, too crackerjacky. And like, this is the offense they would like if Jordan Love was the quarterback. Would the offense and how they're trying to execute it really look that much different? I'm not saying it would be better,
so.
but I know how they're trying to run it.
I don't think so. It's so funny you asked that because I get that on Twitter a lot. I'm sure you do too. Is like as far as what would this offense look like if Jordan Love was the quarterback? And I want to say it'd be more like what we saw last night as far as running the football. But I also know that when given the opportunity to have Jordan Love start a game, Matt's game plan didn't look demonstrably different than anything they'd run all year. So I tend to think, yeah, I'm with you. I think if Jordan Love was out there, I don't think much would change at all. I think Matt would be running what he wants, running his stuff, so to speak, which is, I don't know, a conversation for another day, but that's not encouraging in my view. I did mention I wanted to talk briefly about the offensive line because obviously coming off that Jets game a couple weeks ago, it was in such disarray. It was such bad tape, and clearly they've made the adjustments there. And it was fascinating to me to see. We've got 2 weeks in a row now where basically Zach Tom has been your industrial strength Band-Aid as far as whatever All Pro is out that week. Last week it was Bakhtiari. This week it's Jenkins. But they seem to have found something as far as this new reconstituted line, albeit a piece here or there week by week, but putting Yash over there at the right side, having David on the left side, for the most part, I think they found a way of working. I do think, man, they ran up against a really stout interior defensive front in Buffalo. They really just kind of were hanging on for dear life at points.
Yep.
But for the most part, this is the line that can make this offense work. Like it took in 8 weeks to get there, but I think they've found they've unlocked what they needed to.
Yeah, I agree. I think this last 2 weeks, positive takeaway from the offensive line. It hasn't looked great at times, and I get they've looked a little bit overwhelmed early in the game. Zach Tom got kind of backed into the quarterback on a couple different occasions. It's not going to be perfect. And I do think had Elton started in front of, Zach Tom in that scenario, things probably look even a degree better, obviously. But I do think that moving forward, the line of Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Myers, Runyon, and Yash does give them a legitimate chance to be hopefully even better than a solid offensive line, hopefully a legitimately good offensive line. That's what we expected going in. And I think that has to be the bar for them. But I have seen them take steps in the positive direction. And even late in the game, like the Samori Toure touchdown and a couple of the Romeo Dobbs completion down the sideline.
When
it was obvious passing situations, the offensive line provided them time. And I think they played a little bit scared these past 2 weeks, maybe understandably so, of like, we got to get rid of the ball immediately because this offensive line can't protect. And he gives him some confidence moving forward of like, okay, we can give Aaron a chance to maybe get to a 5 or 7 step drop and look down the field and go through progressions. And this offensive line can hold up a little bit better.
Well, it's funny too, because I think they've done that now a couple weeks where early on they look a little overwhelmed, but as the game goes on and pass rushers get tired, man, defensive players, they get after it early and then, tired legs pop up, etc. But like the last couple of weeks in the second half, they have looked better in pass protection and some of the more deep developing stuff. But yeah, to your point, it's going to be interesting to see what they feel they can do now that they've at least kind of demonstrated an ability to get downfield on a couple of occasions in Buffalo. I mean, they're heading into Detroit. They're not a great defense. In fact, they're historically bad, but it's a tough place to play. Matt's teams have not played well in that building.
No.
And it's going to be loud and communication, etc. I tell you what, seeing David Bakhtiari looking in at the football and then popping out and taking Von Miller for a ride nearly every play, that brought warm feelings to my heart. I mean, as far as just, this is exactly what you're talking, like, this is what we were waiting for. This is what we were expecting. And for Von Miller, a guy who he's wrecked games for Bills opponents this year. Absolutely wrecked them. And Bakhtiari made him a complete non-factor last night. That's encouraging to me. Like, that's a green shoot. Like, that's something I'm like, if he's out there, now that's a big if, but if David's out there, that side's on lockdown. I love that.
And not only do I love that, but like it just reminds you of how insanely talented of a football player that this guy is, how great he was, and how big of a loss he was when he was out for so long, and is whenever his knee flares up and he can't play. And it sucks all the way around because he's just such a freaking amazing left tackle who can do almost anything that he wants. He's a great run blocker. He's a great pass protector, goes up against one of the best in the game with a leg that's clearly not 100%, that flares up at any given moment. And he he beats Von Miller throughout the course of that game.
Beat him like a drum all night.
Absolutely a positive and encouraging result. And hopefully that can be something that continues moving forward.
You know, one thing that did bug me last night, I just thought of this. One thing that just did kind of drive me nuts is, like, Rodgers is talking about, we need to be able to push it downfield in the passing game to win in this league. Also, you know what would help is like getting up the line of scrimmage and hiking the ball. The fact that they were taking everything down still to like 1 second on the play clock, down like multiple scores in the fourth quarter and running the football. So they've got the clock continuously going, but they're still taking the play clock down. Like, if that's not a crystallization of, like, they're never going to run tempo. I've had people in my mentions like almost every week, like, why don't they run the hurry up exhibit A, man? They're just Rodgers wants to do everything he wants to do at the line of scrimmage, and that's it. That's all I got. Like, that frustration really came out last night.
I think the prime example of that is you're down 17, it's end of the third quarter, and you go on an 11 play, almost 7-minute drive that ends in the 4th and 1 or 4th and 1.5, halfback dive up the middle and turnover on downs. And you basically just did the Bills' job for him, right? You took 7 minutes,
ran the clock,
and burned it all down. You get to very minimal time left in the fourth quarter, still down 3 scores. And again, whether it's, pace or just urgency, right? Like
urgency. That's the thing. It's a lack of urgency. That's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, there had to be a better sense of urgency there, and there just wasn't, and it was confounding and frustrating to say the least.
One thing I will say that I'll pop up on Twitter in a couple mentions, the idea that, they just want to make the score look respectable so it doesn't look so bad in the box score. Like, you have never, ever spoken to a human being in the NFL, employed by an NFL team, if you believe that is true. There is absolutely no fucking way that Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, and everyone on down is sitting there going, well, just got to make the score look better at the end of the day. Like, no, that is not it. Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree. And here's the thing too, right? Like they're doing, for the most part, the right thing in that scenario. And what we talked about earlier is like, you got to take what they're giving to you. And if you get a score on that drive, specifically, you get a touchdown on that drive, you're down by 10 with about 11, 12 minutes left in the game, plenty of time, not ideal circumstances, clearly, but like you've now made
yourself a chance, at least.
Giving yourself a puncher's chance. And whereas if we've seen this team go all of a sudden like spread everyone out and you're playing right into their hands. And I guarantee you, had they gone past happy at that point in the game, this game would have been worse than it would have been better. It just,
I totally agree. And that's the thing. It's like, people, I think they get it twisted as far as just do what you do well. Aaron Jones, most of those plays, they do those pretty well. Like that's what drives me nuts. It's the idea of, I'm not saying like don't ever throw the ball. It's just like lean into your good players. I just don't. Speaking of good players, how about the job Josiah DeGuara did last night? I mean, he didn't, not huge on the stat sheet. He had a catch or two, but man, he was mashing in the run game. I mean, shout out to DeGuara. I think that's the most snaps he's played all year, and it really showed up. I mean, he was an absolute kind of just blanket as far as when he got on a guy, that guy was got. Like, he was taken care of.
There's been a underground support for Josiah DeGuara to get more playing time, and right. I think this is why, right? Like he's shown up as a blocker when he's given opportunities. I know he's not Mercedes Lewis, right? He's not the most physical, intimidating, tight end / H-back in the world, but he does his job very well, usually wins against his guy and gives his running back an opportunity to make a play. And he's got a little bit of juice after the catch, which was evidenced by the 60-yarder he had against the Lions in Detroit last year on the tight end screen. So I very much like Josiah DeGuara. I would like to see him get more playing time, and hopefully this is the precursor to him getting a lot more playing time moving forward.
All right. We've talked a lot about the offense. Now it's time to talk about the defense. And look, there's a lot to talk about. And I think the overarching thing was, okay, the last couple of weeks we've seen them play a little bit more press man. We've seen Jair travel, get inside on third down, etc. And then, those guys chirped before the game and they got what they asked for, and Diggs and company were ready for it. I mean, look, I'm all for the bravado. I'm all for like talking the talk, but man, hold on to the interception. This is Jair. You've got another one go through. I guess it did hit him kind of back shoulder, but like just time your jump better, and that's your ball. And then Rasul Douglas getting out there and pressing up against Diggs. I mean, I know it's so frustrating too because Josh Allen is literally getting hit as that ball is released. That ends up in the touchdown and the double move. But man, all those guys, I at least see them making plays. Like Douglas had a number of plays, tackles, etc. I don't know what they're going to do about Darnell Savage, but they got to do something. You talk about just a liability. And I'm not even talking like it's Ha Clinton Dix level at points. Like, it's bad, like straight up bad. I don't know what's happened, but he looks lost and timid and not anywhere near the kind of even just consistent, competent player you need on your back end to complement Adrian Amos. I don't know I know that was weird because they benched Stokes at one point. I'm like, but Roland Savage out there. Like,
out there.
Like put Ford out there. You've seen Ford go in for Savage and play pretty darn well. I don't know what they're doing there, but that to me is the big conundrum for Joe Barry because as long as he's playing like this, they are in deep trouble in the back end.
Well, with Savage too, the thing that's so frustrating is, when was the last time he made a big play?
Forever ago.
I mean, seriously, like, so he's all right. He's not coming up with
in the old scheme, I think.
That's totally true.
Scheme. It's the last time he made a big play.
It's almost 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's the last time we've seen him come up with big plays. Is he consistent? No, he's completely inconsistent. Is he a sound tackler? No. Is he great in coverage? No. Is he a physical, intimidating safety? No. So he's not a box safety. He's not a rangy free safety. He's not a center field safety. He's not a coverage safety. He doesn't come up with big plays and he misses tackles all the time. So there is no upside left here. There's no more juice to squeeze from it to say like, well, we're just waiting for this part to develop. Like there's nothing left. There isn't anything that he's doing well enough for you to want to put him out on the field and be like, all right, we feel really comfortable with what he's doing. The mistakes are plentiful. The missed tackles are plentiful. And there's no big plays that are counteracting the negatives. At least Rudy Ford is going balls to the wall, 1,000,000 miles per hour.
Hair on fire, baby.
Hair on fire. And I'm not saying, you know what, Amos and Rudy Ford probably going to have some challenges at safety pairing together. I don't care anymore because guess what? Savage and Amos have troubles right now pairing together at safety. And I at least want the guy that's flying to the football and going to make plays. And if you want to have the saying of like, I'm okay with mistakes as long as you make them 1,000,000 miles per hour, I will gladly, and I mean gladly, take the 1,000,000 miles per hour mistake right now over the chicken wing shoulder into Nowheresville, where he goes 50 yards,
literal diving at guys' feet with your shoulder. I mean, it is. It's Ha Clinton Dix. The ghost of Ha Clinton Dix showed up last night in Buffalo. I mean, holy Toledo. And you go forward and the linebackers, both of them go out. One of them due to injury, the other one due to whatever that was on the sideline. I mean, Quay Walker, buddy. Welcome to the NFL. Like, I know you're all pumped up and you're like, you're all raring to go, but wow, what a dumb move. And I know Matt tried to talk like, oh, they always get the second guy. The other dude was helping him up. So what are you doing, man? I understand you see the opposing color and you're like, get off me, but oh boy. And shout out to Isaiah McDuffie and Wilson for going out there and making the most of it. You can see why they're backups, but man, it's fascinating to me that a week after we saw Quay Walker utilized so kind of creatively as far as getting him on the edge and getting him after the quarterback, while he was out there early in the game, it looked really, I'm not even going to say pedestrian, but it looked really rote. Like here are our 2 or 3 coverages that we're going to play. We're not going to utilize his athletic ability at all to get after Josh Allen. We're going to man up, play too high and whatever, and he's going to take the back out of the backfield, and we're going to let Josh just run all over. Like, you've got this piece, and for whatever reason, it felt like Joe just didn't want to utilize it. Like, again, athleticism, like, use him. That was a frustration to me.
I will say, and I really don't want to be good cop today, but I will say I do think the Bills are insanely talented on offense that there's no good solution, right? Like, I know we would have liked to see, Jair a little bit more on Stephon Diggs and some things like that. But man, playing a ton of man coverage against this Bills team is not a recipe for success.
Recipe for disaster is what that
exactly
is.
Blitzing the heck out of Josh Allen has not worked for anyone. In fact, he's a better quarterback so far this season under pressure than he is in a clean pocket, which just goes to show you how ridiculously talented he is. So I guarantee you, if they blitzed Quay Walker a bunch more, or played a bunch of press man, or played Jair single on Diggs, we're probably having a lot of the same conversations of like, well, why didn't they try something else, or why didn't they do more? Like there's no perfect way to play this Bills team. I thought overall they made some good things happen. Like you said, Jair had his opportunity to get his hands on the ball a couple times. They picked him off twice. Don't hate what the defense did. Don't love what the defense did. I think the tackling, the not railing to the football, the play where Josh Allen that we talked about, where Stokes goes flying by with the chicken wing. On that play, there's like 5 guys that are jogging to the football. And it's just like, listen, I don't want to hear Matt LaFleur have to say at halftime, I want to see these guys compete in the second half. This is Sunday night football on the road against the best team in football, with kind of your maybe not your season quite on the line, but like kind of. And if you have to tell your guys at halftime that, like, I want to see you guys compete in the second half, like that shouldn't have to be a conversation that's had at that point. Like, I don't need any more rah-rah Matt LaFleur, huddles on the sidelines or halftime.
Right.
Like, if you're not showing up to this game, like what are you doing? And some of the
why are you in the league?
Exactly. Right? That's concerning to me.
Yeah, it's always tough. There were a number of times Corey actually pointed out during watch party last night, where you exactly what you're talking about, like, somebody makes a play, whether it's Josh Allen or a running back or whatever on the perimeter, and you do in the background see a Rashawn Gary or a Russell Douglas just kind of, oh God, like jogging the like weary, like, oh gosh, these guys are so good kind of thing. Like,
and it's not like
he's going to run out of bounds or whatever.
Rather than they were on the field a ton. Like the defense was
at
barely
all
on the field. Like,
yeah. No, well, because they scored so quick.
Yes, exactly.
The Bills just moved the ball. I mean, you don't have to look much further than the end of the first half, when the Packers are doing everything they can to try and move the ball, and it's so laborious. And then the Bills get the ball and legit one throw over the top, and they're in field goal range. And thankfully, it held them to a field goal. But like that just exemplifies these two teams are in their differences. Like,
it was at one point the Bills had, I don't know, it was 24 or 27 points on like 33 plays or something. It was 0.8 points per play, like just something beyond ridiculous.
Beyond ridiculous. That's where the Packers are at this point in time. Hey, special teams. Mari caught a punt, and the only time they did, but he caught it, so it's good. That's progress.
He did catch
a field goal, but I'm not talking about that.
Since I'm bad cop today, I will say, like, Jack Coco, if that, what if the Packers
Holy cow.
What if the Packers played that game against the Bills and it was a 3-point game at the end? Like, they balled out 3-point game at the end. We gloss over something because it didn't really matter whether Mason Crosby made that field goal or not. But imagine that's a 55-yard field goal to tie the game, and Jack Coco dribbles it back to the holder, and like he had multiple snaps in that game that are low.
I was just gonna say he did that twice last night.
Yeah. And this just goes back to, like, we're still fighting through issues that plagued Green Bay from the start of last season. And I get they're on their third long snapper since then, from Bradley to Wordle to Coco, whatever. But like, the same issues that are plagued this team now for years are still rearing their. It didn't matter if he makes the field goal; it doesn't change much anyway. But like, it could have, if that were a 3-point game, like that would have been a major talking point today.
I love that. Yes, you're right. All the problems from yesteryear are still there, and now they've added a ton of new ones for us to worry about. So it's great. It's good times in Packer fandom.
Gotta love it
so much. Andy, I can't thank you enough for hanging out and talking ball every Monday. I really appreciate it. Really missed you last week. Great to have you back. Make sure you check out his work at Packer Report, Pack a Day Podcast, the YouTube channel, doing great live stuff now. Andy, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it, man. Hopefully Victory Monday next week.
That from your comments to the football god's ears. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you next week.